What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Marissa Farrow here, and I'm super excited today because I am in with one of my good friends. I call him my partner in crime. I've known him for quite some time. I've known his family even longer, but I'm really excited today because he is a genius. If you don't follow him already, first of all, you need to be following him. I will make sure I drop that hashtag right there. But you need to be following him. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I'm excited to be partnering with him today because we have a whole lot to talk to y'all about. We're going to try to squeeze it in.
Yeah, so what's up, everybody? My name is Josh Bair. I am a pastor. I am a life coach, really specifically in the lane of mindset and peak performance coaching. So I'm in that space too. I'm a creative as well. So yeah, I can go on and on and on.
He's definitely a creative. In case y'all don't know, this space is just so dope. It's all his genius. So creatives definitely rock and rule the world. But I love that you opened up with talking about being a life coach and you started talking about, performance, peaking, and just kind of being the top of your game, because these are the things that you and I were even drawn to in our natural conversations, And I mean, I'm 34. I won't say Josh's age unless he wants to say his age, but we at a place where I think we're becoming so much more spiritually responsible. Like, I can't even lie. I think being in ministry since I was a teenager, I think that it was easy to kind of, cover up some of the immaturity with my age. But now we're at a stage where, the conversations that drew us into this segment was accountability. It was like, let's deal with, some of the things we need to be accountable over. So being a life coach, I think that is just like the easiest segue into today's conversation, because there are a lot of people who need to understand about emotional health, relational health, organizational health. And those are some of the reasons why, we're talking today. So in your practice, life coaching begins where for people today? Mindset.
I always say the first thing that I tell any client is you need a target, but a target that is not defined won't lead to any direction. So if you don't have a target, it's going to be impossible for you to get to where you're going.
You dropping nuggets already.
Okay. So a target that's not defined, when a target is defined, direction will appear. And so many people get frustrated with their life because they have not yet defined a target. And so they get so caught up on the detours of life, like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Right. What was your target? And so I always say start off with SMART goals.
When the target is not defined, there can be no direction. But when there is a target, that's where direction comes from. And that's funny because that literally is the premise of that conversation that we were having that I think drew me into this, because, the target now for us and what we were discussing was really about finding our purpose. It was about not just finding that purpose, but being able to define that purpose, because in defining that purpose, you are able to then define your personal goals, your personal strategies, and then your personal standards. Those are some of the things that we were discussing, which led us into a crazy dating conversation that we will dive into.
We need to get into that.
Oh my God, we're going to dive into that part. But I mean, finding purpose today, it's hard for people. I mean, because we are in a world where purpose is so defined by what people see in their minds. I think people see everything that is exploited on social media. That is like the big go-to. And people define themselves in the limelight of what they see other people accomplishing, when that's not reality. So when we start talking about defining purpose, I feel, and this is my personal thing, you cannot define your purpose apart from the creator of that purpose, right? So the only way to define your purpose is in the creator. You are the creation. The creation can only know its purpose in the light of the creator. And so people often go to the visuals and the filters and the lifestyles that people present, when the reality is the book. I ain't being funny. Where that Bible you just had on? That book? That book is what we need, because a lot of people are looking for purpose in wrong places.
Right.
What do we say to that?
I think you're hitting it right on the head. I think in the culture of likes, shares, subscribes, you can get caught up in living in somebody's highlight reel. Not knowing the backstory of the horror story that got them to where they go. Like, it's all highlight. It's a highlight. And you don't know how they got to there. You don't know what they had to do to get to that. You don't know the work that they put in. And so, like, if you're not clear on who you are, you'll end up selling lashes. And that's not even your assignment in life, like, because it gets you to the bag.
Everybody want to be a makeup artist.
You want to be a makeup artist. And
everybody want to be a lash tech. No, there's nothing wrong with it.
I'm not against it. I'm simply saying, if you know when you're really connected to purpose when it's not about profit.
Say that again.
So many people
Y'all write that down.
abort their purpose for profit. And then they end up frustrated that they didn't get what they wanted in the end.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So,
And you talk about frustration. I literally was just preaching a sermon about, kind of similarly about a lot of people's frustration is post-pandemic. I want God to take me back to where I was. When the reality is that's recovery. And recovery is I'm going to put it back in a normal state. And I believe that in this season, God's trying to renew us. Renewal means that I'm going to step in and I'm going to pick up from the interruption. I'm going to start from the place where you interrupted. And so that path that God had for you still exists for you. But for whatever reason, people are looking to go back to what was. And then on top of that, I think that people are also trying to find purpose outside of pandemic living. That thing was hard. That was a demon. That thing. Oh my God. You talking about even some of the things you and I have talked about personally as far as accountability. Some of those things I think that I dealt with personally came from the demon of pandemic living. And I mean, shaking that to find purpose has got to be a target for many people. I think that you have to be intentional about trying to live beyond the lunacy that was our lives for 2 years. That was hard.
No, it was extremely hard, and for some people, they want to go back because there's it's the familiar, and then for a lot of the other side of it, like for people who are really creative, they got their voice in the pandemic after the pandemic, so they really found themselves in the pandemic because you weren't distracted by the club scene or the church scene or whatever your thing was. The normalcy of going back to that is done. And so even in the church is different. Or if your thing is going out, it's just the nightlife is different. Everything is different. And so you really had to hunker down, double down on what are you doing? What is my life's task? What is my purpose? In the culture space, we say life task, life mission. What is your mission? But in spiritual spaces, like church, what is your purpose? And I always say, purpose is not a destination. Purpose is like the chapter in a book. At each turn,
purpose is evolving.
Purpose is evolving. It's growing.
That's really good.
It's not stagnant because God isn't stagnant.
Oh my God!
Why would we think that our purpose is stagnant?
That's even mind blowing for me right now because that's funny. I think I'm just kind of realizing that every season brings a different battle, right? And a different perspective. I talk to you a lot about being in motherhood with a child who was diagnosed with ASD, and that brought me a different purpose, and it focused me differently too. And it also brought me a different level of accountability. So some of those things that I just didn't think, like some of the distractions that I allowed to be in my life prior to becoming a mom, I don't have the time to afford. So now I know that purpose has to be dynamic. It has to be changing because what I served in my last season doesn't necessarily serve me in this season.
Right.
And that's not even just for my shortcomings. That's also for the things that I was being intentional about. Like even in this season, I got to be more intentional about my education than I was maybe in previous seasons because I'm more focused on what it means for the future of this person that's now attached to me. You're a father. I mean, you get that. That changed your life, I'm sure.
In a major way.
Oh my God. I mean, you had a baby in your house though, by the way. Yeah. So, I'm going to bring it up. That was like,
so quick story. So
that was crazy.
We were I think we were 6 days past due.
Oh wow.
Bree was 6 days past due, and we watched the movie. We were Netflix and chilling, but we weren't chilling because she was the baby was about to come, and we just didn't know. And I went upstairs, came back downstairs.
And you had
she
to
was
turn
like,
into an OBG.
She was like, all right, I need to go upstairs. I need to get in the bath. I got the bath for her. She's screaming, moaning.
Oh my God.
With groans that cannot be understood.
This is childbirth.
Yeah.
You are going to have childbirth in pain. Like, this is the word.
So she gets up out of the bathtub, walks past the steps, because I'm like, we need to go to the hospital. You need to go down the steps so we can get in the car. She walks past the steps, goes back into the room. She lays on the bed. I said, no, this is not what we're doing.
She didn't care.
And long story short, she got up out the bed, and I thought I said, okay, we finally getting up. She grabs my arm and she starts to run down.
Oh my God.
And
She's about to
by this time, her mom and her sister came in, and her mom, I was like, let's go. And her mom was like, Dad, look.
She's having a baby.
And Sage, who was our youngest daughter, she was crowning.
Oh my God.
Baby came out and caught the baby. And
Wow.
Yeah, so.
That's like a real life episode of Martin, by the way.
No, like a real life, like it was pretty traumatic for us. Like it was really bad.
But fatherhood in general, I'm
Right.
sure. I mean,
Changed
seeing the
everything.
miracle of birth like that, though. I mean, you saw it once before, but like, did that like really like blow your mind?
Yeah,
Like,
the first time with Dallas, who's our oldest daughter, it was like, okay, wow, this is the first time. But the second time, it was like, I did it.
yeah.
It was like
This is-
no doctors, no medicine, no nothing.
like
This is like
life.
This is it. Like it would just change me a lot. You know, the dynamic between one child and two children is very different, and so
Which proves that every experience also changes our understanding of that purpose.
right,
So,
right, like the purpose of providing, the purpose of stability, and like you just can't get up and go.
Right.
Like you
Like
need to
what
be
you
able to
said.
pay bills. Like you just can't just
It's very
abandon
serious.
everything and just like, hey, like that, it's not that. It's,
And just do whatever suits you.
right.
Man, that's a
like it's no longer
thing.
a selfish purpose. It's a selfless purpose.
And the thing is, it was easy. I think when you look at the miracle of children and just the purity that they bring,
Right.
that changes you. But I will say that I feel very intentionally about God knowing what I needed in that season to redirect my purpose. Like,
Right.
I didn't know that I knew that I wanted to be a mother at some point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, in Christendom, we get married, we have children. That's
Yeah.
how it goes, right?
Yeah.
I didn't expect, for those who don't know my story, to end up with this child who, at the time that I received him, needed a home to be in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that changed my life completely. But I believe that God knew exactly what I needed to focus me and to
Right.
redirect my purpose and to show me the dynamic nature of that purpose, that season would bring me something different. So it was also from that season that I think my standards started changing. Don't
Yeah.
keep
No,
side-eyeing me.
like,
You
that's
keep
so good.
side-eyeing. He keeps side-eyeing me because this conversation is going to happen by the end of this podcast. But I'm telling y'all, Josh and I have had some very serious one-on-one, preacher to preacher, brother to sister conversations about like dating and the standard and what's going on in the world. And that's literally, I think, what evolved from the purpose. It evolved from that for me.
Yeah, and I think again, you know, in the whole coaching space, we talk about defining reality. It's the hardest thing because you have to deal with, do I like where I am?
I don't think a lot of people are facing their reality.
Dude,
I feel like people are not legitimately facing their realities.
Yeah, because it gives you a framework. It's the defining reality gives you a framework to like grow from.
Yeah.
And so you can't even have standards and boundaries if you don't know where you are you don't know where you are.
Come on here.
So how are you going to say like, I want to get out of debt, I want to do this with my finances, I want to do this in my love life, I want to do this in my friendship life, I want to be able to do this,
Right.
and whatever the thing is, you have to be able to define where you are because that kind of helps create a frame for standards.
And can we start with getting out of debt? Because that was just a good point. Like,
Yeah.
before I can be good enough for anything and anybody, and before I could set those standards for myself, I had to be able to be the standard.
Right.
And that's the thing. A lot of
Right.
people want to have standards without first being the standard.
Right, which is where standards are so up and down. Like so somebody can just come in your life and like not
Change
be
your
with
standard.
you. Change your standard. Like, yeah, like you said we're not gonna have sex, but now we having sex because
And
you
it's
didn't have a
that simple.
standard.
And it's that
I'm not judging you. I'm just saying like that was your standard, but like you let them change your standard because you didn't have a conviction to your standard. So defining reality is also a conviction. Like, yo, this is my standard. These are my goals. These are my financial goals. This is my physical health goals. This is my
Absolutely.
mental health goals. Like you don't have a standard for your mental health.
Exactly.
But you have a standard for your spirituality? How is that possible?
But you know
How that
what?
work?
I think it's possible because I think, believe it or not, and we always talk about not being like super deep, but
No, you can go there.
I
I'm good.
feel like people miss the manipulation of the enemy. The enemy is very cunning.
Yeah,
And I'm talking
sure.
about, like they used to preach to us like, oh, he coming like you like him to smell and like you like them to look and da da da. But I'm saying like the enemy even knows how to use distractions within your emotions. And if you stay in certain spaces long enough, you literally are falling into the manipulation of the enemy. I remember, just talking to you about my health challenges and the things that I was going through. Had I allowed myself to stay there, I would have literally been aborting that purpose.
Wow.
Because I was more focused on what was happening to me rather than what God was doing in me.
Wow.
I was able to utilize that same struggle in going back to finding my purpose through the Creator to now allow God to minister to me differently and to pull me into other awarenesses as a person, as a woman. I had to deal with some things like there's ministry, I believe, that God has birthed in me, even out of the things that I've gone through. But I wouldn't have discovered that if I would allow myself to miss that. The enemy manipulates you, and fear is one of them that's easy. But think about some of the health challenges that people face on a regular. Like there are a lot of people who deal with infertility, barrenness. There are people, younger people. There's studies coming out that younger people are dealing with cancer more than older people. I think that when people are facing things, fear is natural, but when you start looking at the promises of God and the word of God, even the truth of God, that all things really do work together for the good of them, we're able to take those challenges and see them through the lens of God's ability to birth something new in you. Now I have something that I feel like I should meet and minister to.
Wow.
I feel like there are women out here who are dealing with maybe some of the same issues that I was dealing with that I didn't even know I was dealing with. But I could not stay in the idea that, or the narrative that the enemy was creating for me. But I feel like a lot of people get caught up in missing the cunningness of the enemy.
Right, because sometimes the enemy doesn't move like in a way that like he
It's
just
not
moves.
cut
He
dry.
he moves in your light. Like
Oh my
you
God.
it's like the algorithm of like he knows your algorithm.
The algorithm.
He knows like the algorithm in the iPhone or the Instagram. Like
Absolutely.
he knows what you're looking at. Like not just on your screen. Like
Literally.
he knows your desires. Like he
He's
knows what you
he's
like.
He's like spyware.
That, he's in your business, for sure.
Yeah, no.
And so what
He
you
knows.
said is really powerful, and I want you to talk about this just real quick. You said I needed God to minister to me.
Oh my God.
Differently,
yeah.
Okay, number one, when did you know? What were the alarms? What were the signs that I need a deeper walk with God for my situation, and what were some of the things that
Addiction.
Okay.
I think that people kind of categorize addiction as one thing. And mostly it's, drugs, sex, and alcohol. But there are people who are legitimately addicted to food. There are people who are legitimately addicted to the lottery, scratch. Things that, and when I talk about addiction, I'm talking about things that are not good for you, whether it's your physical health, your financial health, your mental health, but for whatever reason, it brings you comfort to keep doing. I had to recognize what I was doing to comfort my void or to fill myself was something that I had lost hold of. It was like I knew that it was making me sick, but I kept doing it.
That's what an addiction is.
That's
I can't stop. Like perfectionism is an addiction.
It's an addiction. There's so many variations of.
I can't shake the fact that I can't complete a task because I'm addicted to it being perfect the first time, instead of letting the process really develop.
But a lot of people don't know that they have a problem.
That's what I'm saying.
We package under OCD, right? But
Right. No.
No, but if it's controlling,
sure.
your ability to be able to see clearly, think clearly, do clearly, and
do
even
clearly.
hear clearly, right? Because if I tune out every other source of information, whether it be just from people who I work with or people who are supposed to be my friends or people who are in my family, because I feel like this is the only opinion that matters. That's not healthy. You have no accountability. Where there is no accountability, there can be no change, right? So you have to have people around you who can keep you accountable, because if there is nobody around you to check you and you are the only source of your you're checking, then there is no change because there's nobody to keep you accountable, right? So I have to have somebody that I can look to, or some model that I can look to, or some method that I can look to check if where I am is considered, I guess standard or metrically healthy. I mean, literally. For who I am, where I am, what I do. And I think that a lot of people don't necessarily recognize that when you are yourself accountability, there can be no real accountability.
Yeah.
It's just you.
It just feels good.
It's you,
it
it's
feels
your
good to you.
opinion, it's
Yeah,
your
yeah,
thought, and it comforts you.
Yeah, it doesn't challenge you. Like you just said. Like, drop mic.
Yeah.
Drop mic.
No, I really believe that a lot of people, and here was another downfall for red flag for me. I wasn't talking to nobody.
Isolation.
That's the biggest trick of the enemy.
Like
Isolation. Isolation is a trick of the enemy.
One more again for the people in the back.
Isolation. It's a trick of the enemy, and that's when I'm going back to talking about how the enemy is cunning. I don't think the enemy wants you quiet. He wants you to not talk about it. He wants you to believe that this is it. He wants you to believe that there is no other hope. And so when you isolate yourself, and then don't let nobody have ticked you off. So now I'm really not talking to nobody, because I feel justified in my isolation.
Right.
Like, people manipulated me. People did me wrong. So now I'm justifying the fact that the enemy wants to keep me to myself.
Yeah, and I think let's deal with the big elephant in the room, that all of these things are interconnected to each other. So isolation, fear. All of these things are interconnected, and they work together. They're like cousins. They're not separated from each other.
Kissing cousins.
They kissing cousins, and they team up to work against you.
Jump you.
I will never forget it. My father-in-law said something really powerful. He said, that demonic oppression is they fight each other. But they will have unity when it comes to attacking God's children.
Right.
So it just lets me know, they all work together. And if you're not clear on how the enemy works, the strategy of the enemy.
The strategy.
Because it's a strategy, right?
What?
It's a strategy.
It's literally a
to
method
kill,
and a mechanism.
Steal, and destroy.
Now, you talking about we need to say that one more time for the people. I'm talking about you. You need to say that one more time.
Kill, steal, and destroy.
Absolutely.
And some of us get so caught up with the fact that you're so focused on the fact that you think that the enemy wants to kill you every time.
Right.
Sometimes he don't want to kill you. If he can steal something from you, then he can destroy your hope. And it'll eventually kill you.
If he can steal something from you.
Steal something from you. If he can steal your hope, if he can steal your dream, if he can steal your ambition.
And you know what, he's normally going after your peace. What?
Because it's a gift.
What?
Peace is a fruit of the Spirit. So he's going to go after all of the fruits. He's going to go after all of that stuff.
Every single one of them.
And, and we can talk about the fruits of the Spirit later.
But when you start talking about peace comes in purpose. I feel like you have to be able to find that target, like you were talking about, find that purpose and define that purpose to be able to have peace, because my personal conviction is anytime you're operating outside of your purpose, you cannot have peace.
Right.
I preached about that a couple weeks ago. We were talking about Jonah. I mean, literally, he tried to flee 2,500 miles away from where God was sending him, and he expected to get on that boat and have peace. There was no peace on that boat. You cannot have peace in a place that God didn't plant you.
Wow. You cannot have peace in a place that God did not plant you.
And I think that we a lot of times expect God, and we pray to God, bring us peace in whether it's toxic situations, toxic relationships, toxic mindsets. That's
bring us peace in our preference.
In my preference, it's not your preference.
It's my preference.
This is what I want to do.
So if you do it like the way that I want to do it, then I'll be okay. And it's like, no, God don't work like that.
And I think that that's confusing. I think that's about to minister to somebody, because I feel like somebody's been trying to make peace out of your preference. When the reality is, just like in the Garden of Gethsemane, it's not about our will. And that is a place of purpose. When you can actually accept and acknowledge, God, I may not necessarily like the process that you're taking me through, but I trust that your purpose is ultimately going to be what it is that you need from me. that's a place of peace that can only be found in accepting the will of God. But a lot of people, I think, are still just trying to make God accept their will. I think, especially in our generation, I feel like our generation, they want to do it their way. I mean, I can say it because it was me at one point. I feel
Yeah,
like,
for sure. Me too. Me too.
and I'm like, God, you gonna make this work? Cause I got every excuse in the book. I had every excuse in the book for why
Because it
this
makes
is gonna
sense.
work.
It makes sense.
And because other people are getting away with it. Oh, that's the part right there. If y'all getting away with it, I want to get away with it too.
Yeah, like and God's not calling you to that. God's calling you something else.
What my mama used to tell me, to whom much is given, much is required.
required.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, and your grace is not their grace. Your favor is not their favor. But I definitely believe that this moment is a time where people must recalibrate to align themselves and find those targets, but it has to be intentional. I think everything got to be intentional, even spiritually.
Yeah.
Your prayer time got to be intentional.
Yeah. What's the first thing you do when you wake up? Like,
Oh man,
what's the first? Is it scrolling?
it was giving scroll. It was
Yeah,
giving
me
scroll
too.
vibes for a long time.
Like, and I'm not going to sit here like I'm perfect. Like sometimes I do that.
Yeah.
But any bad habit has to be broken.
But here's the question: are you surrounded by the standard that you need? Like in every aspect, family, friends, emotional, mental relationships, whatever those relationships are you surrounded by a standard that helps lead you to purpose and accountability? I don't think really people checking out these circles these days, and I'm not saying, I feel like
That's good.
I could be honest enough to say I used to crave companionship so much so that I didn't care what position to put me in. That's unhealthy.
Right.
So I would be connected to people that I knew were either going to hinder my purpose or stand in the way of the integrity of that purpose, because I was comfortable with companionship.
No matter who the companion was.
It didn't matter. And it didn't even matter which way they were there. It didn't matter. I just wanted them there. So now, when you start getting into the relationships and the surroundings and the friendships, I think that makes a world of difference.
Yeah, so you don't get what you focus on. You don't get what you hope for. You don't get what you dream for. You get the level of your standard.
You get the love. Say that one more time.
You don't get what you hope for. You don't get what you dream for. You don't get what you pray for. You get the standard, not just your standard. You get the standard of the people that are around you.
Because what's that saying? People only do to you what you allow them to do, right?
Right.
That's standard.
And and sometimes it's not even like a negative connotation. People, we say that, but sometimes, what is your personal standard for your life? How do you, in the coaching space, we do something that's kind of morbid, but I'll say it. If I'm talking to a client, I'll tell them, what do you want it to say on your obituary?
Oof.
Ouch, right? It's painful, right? What do you want them to say about you? And then you need to reverse engineer your reality.
You have to reverse engineer your life.
And
That's
start
deep.
again and say, this is some of the things. It's a practice. You don't always have to do this, but sometimes it works. To say, what do you want people to say about you? It's about legacy. What do you want people to say about you? Ed Milet, he's a distant mentor. He always says, when I get to heaven, there's going to be a version of me in heaven. And I want Jesus to say to me, when he shows me that version of me, I don't want that person to look like I don't know who that person is. I want it to be like, oh, I know you. I don't want it to be like, I don't know who you are. Like, there are certain gifts that God has given you before the foundation of the earth.
Before the foundation.
When you get back, will you recognize the person you were supposed to be? Or will you deal with that tension? I could have done that. I could have did that. And so many times we allow our circumstances, friendships, groups, define like, I can't get out of this.
Wow.
I can't get out of it. I can't change. I really don't have the strength to change. So a circle, a friendship, a companionship is key and critical to the standard of your life so you can become what you're supposed to become. Or you can block what you need to block.
Right.
Because sometimes you don't have the strength to block what you need to block. You need a standard like, yo, I'm calling you because I'm trying to figure out, like, are you good? Like, what you doing? How you living?
Exactly.
And so, Yeah.
But when you start talking about the circumstances, people allowing the circumstances to kind of control their mindset and understanding about their purpose, I think that's powerful because I have found in these last couple of months that I had to give myself a little bit of grace about some of the circumstances that led me into
Fact.
choosing bad relationships, bad friendships, addictions, all the things that I was dealing with. I had to give myself some grace because I had to kind of go back and reverse engineer some of the things that led me to those places, some of the heartbreaks that I dealt with, or the rejection that I might have dealt with, or, you know, the emotional upset that I might have dealt with in my teenage years, right? And I had to look at that and be able to give myself a little bit of grace, like you were a kid. It's okay. And I think that I think my goal in ministering to people these days is encouraging them to do the same. Go back to where some of that distrust, some of that that hard exterior, some of the walls we put up, where that all began.
Right.
And give yourself a little bit of grace because God knew who you were at that point. He knew your emotional maturity, your ability to be able to bear the circumstances that might have been going on around you. Like, I had to, because that was the only way that I could move on from him and heal myself, to be able to break those addictions and to be able to break that mindset and to be able to break that part of me that felt like I was always going to be controlled by those walls, those defenses, those mechanisms, and things like that. So when you start talking about healing and making oneself whole, I had to deal with that because I felt like I couldn't fix my body until I fixed my mind.
Wow.
That was just.
I couldn't fix my body till I fixed my mind.
We were talking about this when in our discussion on what we were going to do today, and we were talking about how your spiritual well-being impacts your emotional and physical well-being. You would agree?
Yeah, I think in some cases the environment is more important than the mindset because you can't live. You live to the environment, and so if the environment isn't conducive, then you can't live past the environment. So it's very important that your mindset is important, but the environment in which your mindset flourishes is important because the environment could either kill it or help it to grow. So environment is extremely important. So when you're talking about this whole notion of, go back to the childhood, the little boy, the little girl in you, in psychology they talk about, in coaching we talk about it too. It's called attachment issues.
Wow.
Your attachment. And so what attachment do you have? Do you have avoidant? Do you have preoccupied? Do you have the secure attachment?
Drop that knowledge.
Where are you in the attachment spectrum, right? Because you might be avoidant because somebody rejected you when you were a kid. You might be preoccupied because somebody, when you were a child, was too preoccupied with something else. And so it's become, you've learned from the environment, right? We're talking about environment. And so some of the mindset we have has been given to us subconsciously. But if we don't deal with the conscious, Romans 12:2, be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Quote that book.
Right. It's transformation is a process.
Exactly.
Which means you have to go through a process and you got to go through a digging process. And so you got to know where you are on that spectrum. And, there's all kind of tests that you can take to do.
Can I interject, though, while you're talking about going back to deal with maybe some of the rejections and things that you felt from people who were preoccupied? I also want to look at it from this perspective. I had to realize at what stage in my life I was dealing with certain spiritual battles. So I find that some of the hurt and some of the walls and some of the things that I lived with for a very long time, maybe even concerning my parents or some of the things that happened in my own family, everybody goes through spiritual battles at different stages and phases of their lives.
Spiritual battles, yeah, everybody does. Everybody, you go through big traumas, capital T traumas, and little traumas, lowercase t traumas.
Yeah.
And, those spiritual battles are important to be able to define where you are. Did it happen when you were 11? Did it happen when you were 14? Did it happen when you were 17? Did it happen when you were in college?
But accepting it helped me to find forgiveness. Because some of that stuff we built up in our own minds and our own, expectations, when the reality is that some of the things that happened weren't intentional. I look at that story of Mephibosheth all the time, how the nurse jumped up in a haste to flee with him. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She was trying to leave with him because she understood that his whole family and patriarchal lineage had just died in a battle, right? So she jumped up to leave with him, but she dropped him on both of his feet, leaving him disabled. Think about all the times that people had good intentions, but it ended up with bad results. And that was a place that I had to try to find forgiveness for some of the times that I felt like people dropped me in my life. And that is what led me into even just the doorway of changing that mindset to be able to usher in understanding healing and understanding purpose, because purpose is literally being able to take that pain and allow God to utilize it to minister to whoever, however, whenever, and even if that whoever is you. Because sometimes your purpose is to find the way to minister to you, to pull yourself out. Because when you can pull yourself out, then you have a blueprint to lead others. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Sometimes God got to let you walk through that so that you can understand how to defeat darkness.
Wow. Power in the pain.
Say it again. That sounds like a sermon topic to me.
That sound like move 2.
That sounds like a sermon topic to me. But I do believe that your spiritual well-being leads and ushers the way for your physical well-being. We talk about spiritual and mental well-being. I don't even know if we need... I'm laughing because I feel like we done dealt with this purpose thing. So I'm like, I don't know how we gonna get into this dating thing, babe, because y'all. So my brother is married. He's been married to my sister Brianna for a very long time. I
6 years.
I remember their wedding day like it was nothing, okay? Because we had the time of a life. I am a single woman, right? And we have had the most interesting conversation about the standard of single, well off or well independent kind of women, and this whole thing about dating with these men. But I feel like we gonna end up in another 30-40 minutes conversation. So now I'm trying to figure out.
Maybe we can do the 8.
I'm trying to figure out how. Okay, first of all, I'm trying to figure out how we even gonna attack this thing. So one day I think what did I post it online? I don't remember how we got into the conversation.
It was through Threads.
Threads, y'all. I haven't threaded. Have you been threaded?
Not.
Are y'all threaded?
We thought it was gonna be that, and it just
I wanted it to be that, but I'm still reeling. I'm still reeling
it's
and
cool.
rolling.
It's cool though, because I thread like once a week.
But thread lightly is what.
Thread lightly, yeah.
Well, we were threading, and I think we were talking about how
how
hard it is for successful women, such as myself. Like I feel like I've risen to a certain level of success, and we were talking about leagues. I think I don't want to say leagues in a bougie way, but I am saying when you look at a female who is single, levels and leagues. I feel like if I'm bringing 1.5, I got 1 more year to finish my MD degree, and I have 1 more year to finish my MBA. So I have a double master's, I have an undergraduate degree. I make a significant amount of money on my own. I own a pretty decent sized home, your 4-bedroom. It's just me and my baby, and I have my car. We started talking about the reality, right? When we start talking about the reality of it, this is what I, as a single woman, bring to the table. I bring financial understanding, education, spiritual awareness, discernment, anointed, because people that date me, they hate dealing with me. If you talk to the last guy that I dated, he used to hate that I could just read him off like break, because I have a spiritual discernment that I bring you. I told him, you can't cheat on me, you can't play with me, because I just have a discernment that is out of this world. There are things that I'm bringing to the table. And so my brother here started talking about why it is difficult. So I need you to run it back. Why is it difficult for me to... and women who are like me to have successful relationships with males right now? Let's bring it back to the way you brought it to me.
The pickings are slim.
The pickings are slim, church.
It's slim. It's light out here.
It's giving picking fences.
Yeah. It's holes, gaps. It's bad foundation.
Wait a minute. So since I have been in this dating scene, can I say it is not just slim pickings? Men got a lot of trauma. Like a lot of trauma going on out there in these streets.
Yeah, I mean...
it's coming out real bad. I was dating somebody and they called me toxic. I had been out with them one or
Was it
two
true?
times. Can I say this?
Was it
I don't
true?
feel like toxic is a pattern to me. I don't feel like you can be toxic after 2 incidents of dating. I called him out on his lack of communication and his I'ma say this and I'ma do this kind of thing, because that's not me. If I say it, I'm gonna do it, right? That's who I am. So when I called that individual out, then it was given, oh, you're toxic. I'm toxic. Excuse me.
And I think that's really a great point. And I'm just gonna segue off of it and we can get right back on it. I think that's a value, right? Like clear communication is a standard. It's a standard.
And I said that.
That's
said,
a value.
just because I'm confrontational doesn't mean I'm combative. I deal with things head on to ensure that we can keep misunderstandings out of the mix.
Right.
But when I talk about the trauma, I'm saying there's a lack of even ability to just clearly communicate.
And I think we've heard this everywhere, right? Like women are great at communicating, men are not great at communicating. I'm not sure if I believe that narrative.
I can't say that about you. I mean, for my brother
My
and sister
wife might say-
relationship,
my
yeah, I was
wife
about to say,
say I'm
Brianna
not the
might say
best at
that,
communicating
but like
sometimes,
we
like-
can talk very candidly about
Yeah.
like things.
I think it's a skill, right? Like you got to really desire to want to be better as a person, and so I
skill.
think
I like that.
yeah, it's a skill. Communication is a skill, right? Like
And you have to develop it.
yeah, you have to develop it. Like we both speak.
So you
Like,
gotta work on it.
We both preach. We
Right.
both speak. We both speak. Like clear communication is the ability to take thoughts, mindset, ideas, concepts, and take them from in here and put them in somebody's ear in a way that it's clear. That's it. That's it. That's what communication is.
That's one of my downfalls. I believe that as an orator, as someone who's really good
probably
with
think
words,
you're really great at
people
communication
hate
one-on-one.
talking to me. Like, because I am a very clear cut, I'm very blunt, I don't know how to be any other way though.
Yeah, the job of a speaker, preacher, communicator, whatever person who's in that space is to take big concepts and break them down to the lowest level.
So that-
Because if I give you high scholarship, you're gonna be lost.
He's preaching systematic theology, effective preaching. He's just going
No,
through all this
I'm
101.
not even just talking about just big concepts like philosophy, theology,
Mathematics.
anything.
Let's put that on the table.
Anything, right? It's just taking a concept, an
Mm-hmm.
idea, and our job is to take concepts about something and make it practical to your life. And so sometimes it's easier for us, but the reality with most relationships,
my God.
people break up because of communication.
It's
And
bad.
yeah,
It's
that's
real.
the number one. And communication is hard because once my emotions are invested, I'm not listening through logic. I'm listening through the lens of
Emotions.
my connection. And men do it, women do it. It's not like you being emotional, sis, or you being emotional, bro. Like
Right.
both sides do it. And so both sides have to learn how to communicate. So to go back to your point about what are the issues in relationship, communication, how do we navigate communication? Or how do men, the real question was, how do men deal with successful women?
Yes. Like,
How
I
do
mean,
men
I'm not.
deal
I
with-
can't dumb myself down.
Yeah, and I don't think you should have to.
Yeah,
I think in 2023, going into 2024, you shouldn't have to lower your standard. Like you shouldn't have to. Like you should be clear on what kind of man you want to be with. You should be clear. Like that's the goal, right? These are goals. Like what are some of the things that it has to have?
Wait, but can I segue back to our original conversation where your next question to me was, but are you approachable? I believe is like the way you kind of positioned it. And what I was
Are you approachable?
saying, you were trying to basically ask me like, with all of my accomplishments and things, am I poised in a way where people feel like they can, come to me, receive from me, be in a relationship with me, or am I making somebody feel like they're beneath me, right? And I said that my thing is, I don't care if a guy makes less than me or if he doesn't have the same things as me, because my pastor and I, we talk about this all the time.
Who's a
She
very,
tells me,
very strong leader.
Lord Jesus, and she tells me all the time that she goes into marriage counseling with people and looks at women who are, their standard is, I have to have this, and this coming in. She tells me very clear cut, I married Floyd Flake for the potential of who he was going to be.
Right.
That is my mindset. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I feel that
That's an old school mindset.
as a
though.
discerner,
But it's a good mindset. Though.
as a discerner, I know that everybody is not coming in at this level, right? But if I
Right.
really believe in what I see in you, my job is to empower that out of you. That is what I believe I can do. I believe that's an asset. I hope it is.
Right,
Is
and
something
the
wrong with me for
right,
thinking that?
and, no, you're absolutely right, and you know the whole helpmate, right? You're a helpmate, right? At least from my understanding, the biblical understanding.
As a married
Yeah,
man, yes.
you're a helpmate, and so like, my job is to plant seed.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to fertilize, water, and give sun to the seed, right? If you just look at biology,
That's good, ladies.
right?
I'm sorry. Did y'all just hear that? Y'all, he need to run that before from some sister again. His job as the head is to plant the seed,
Right, plant seed,
your
and
job.
your job is to water
it.
give sun,
Give sun.
give what is needed
Bring
to
that, like,
produce
right.
the seed. So if when I gave my wife my seed,
Right.
she gave me girls.
Right. That's biology.
That's
101.
biology.
Right.
It's the same way with
Relationship.
relationship. It's the same thing with a dream.
That's
So
such
you
a
know we
good-
talk about submission, and you don't have a
good.
mission yet.
That's so good.
You don't have a mission, man. You don't have a mission, and so
Ooh.
how do you expect her to submit to you? You don't have a mission. That don't make no sense.
Man.
Oh, you wouldn't want your daughter to do that. Why would you want your wife? Why would you if you don't want your daughter to do that? Why would you expect somebody to do that with you? And so you need to have a clear mission. And
But
it
that
needs
mindset came after you got your girls, right? It changed a little bit. Or were you always like that? Did you always feel like that? I mean, but you have such a great father.
I knew in my mind that I would be doing what I'm doing now. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I knew. I deviated. I went to some other things, and Bree will tell you that. I think now he's like in his sweet spot. You know, you're in your sweet spot, and so now you're doing you're doing the coaching, you're doing the preaching, you're doing the speaking, you're doing all of this other stuff. So you in it. But now I can kind of submit. Like, you know, in the beginning it was just like, what we doing? And so I'm trying to give you.
What are we doing?
I'm trying to help you get past some of the headache. Like, yo, your guy needs a mission, bro. If you don't have a mission, you shouldn't be dating.
So there has to be a starting point. Okay.
Yeah, that should be a part of
I
every
like
woman's
that.
standard. Like, does he have a mission? Does he know what he wants to do with his life?
Oh, wow.
Like, and how vast is this mission?
So now I can
How
stop feeling bad about
targeted
writing
is
everybody
this?
off if I don't see that there's a mission or a plan or some sort of hustle, some sort of drive, some sort of goal.
Right. Like you said, you know, I think every woman has the gift of discernment. You know?
Yeah.
I think
It's women's intuition.
Intuition, right? Like, yeah, like you can see, like, you know, he's not where he should be, but you know, I can see some potential there.
Exactly.
The key is though, this is the thing, and this is why we get into communication issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that you see something in me, but because you have an expectation and you've set a time frame for what you see from me.
Yeah.
If I don't hit it in that time frame,
Wow.
then your frustration becomes my irritation.
Ooh.
And now my irritation is I don't want to hear nothing you got to say.
Pin that. Put that on a clip. He need to run that back. Your frustration becomes his irritation. Now
Yeah,
that
like because now you like I'm starting to make these strides and it's like I'm fighting the world, right?
oof.
And now I'm fighting you.
Come on, black man.
And like, yo, like I don't want to have to fight you. I don't want to fight you on this. I just want to be able to be in a place of peace. And you know, it's a give and take, right? Because I'm not so immature that I don't see the other side. Like, well, you done took you done took 5 years to figure this thing out. How much longer am I gonna wait? You need standards, sis. Because if it takes 5 years, then that's not for you. It might be for somebody else who's willing to wait that long.
It might be for somebody else.
If your standard is I need him to be able to define it, walk in it, there needs to be timetable, right? Like in relationships, you need SMART goals. They need to be specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be attainable. They need to be
He talking
relevant.
about- This is knowledge, by
And
the
they
way.
need to be time bound. That's a SMART goal. So if none of that, if it's not relevant to you, if this guy what he's doing is not relevant to you, it's not going to be a SMART goal.
It's not.
If it's not specific, it's not a SMART goal. If it's not measurable, like if you can't say in month 3 we were here, in month 6 we're here, it's not measurable. it's not a smart goal. This might not be the guy for you.
And I think I had to almost kind of just also be more spiritual concerning timing, because I think in any female's mind, your time is your time. It's like mentally I've put myself on this time clock. But watching God bring me a child outside of what I thought it was, how it was going to be originally, as far as like my my first experience in motherhood, I realized God, he changes this time thing up. Like, what you really think is supposed to happen for you, it really might not happen that way, right? Because it took me getting a child first to mature me to a place where I was prepared, to be able to do that. It took me to get to a space and a season in my life where I felt like I could bring something better to the table because my goals were more clear, as he talked about in the beginning. I had that targeted standard. I had that targeted strategy. I had that understanding that this is specifically where I am at this moment in my life. This is what I need to accompany where I am, because at this point now, my dating life is not just about me. It's about the fact that I have a child that's involved in my life as well, right? And so in my mind, I thought God was going to do it according to my time, according to my way, according to my thought process, when the reality is his timing is so different. So even when you start talking about the time that we put on people to obtain or accomplish what we feel like they should accomplish, you also got to be prayerful about that. And some of that, if you are not prayerful, discerning, and really have a relationship with God, can be a trick of the enemy, because if you two may very well be called one to another, you can allow the enemy to frustrate that process because of what you think is supposed to happen in your time versus what's supposed to happen in the time that God develops that person to see who they are, or develops you to even understand who you are in the light of that person.
I always say, and that's a great point, God's timing is so perfect, he won't allow you to miss your moment. He won't.
Say it again.
He will not allow you to miss your moment. And so I think, defining that reality, like, there are some things that are negotiable. Like, for you, you're an itinerant preacher. Like, you're on the road. Or for you, you're not home a lot.
Right. Not right now.
Not right now. And so what does that look like in your dating life?
Exactly.
Like, and for me, in my marriage, I'm starting to go out a lot. I'm starting to be out a lot. So it's like.
But you spent like 5 to 6 years, kind of.
And there's certain things that I don't play about. So I'm always taking my girls to school.
I love
so
that.
I just because that was what I came out of.
Right.
Like my dad was always on the road. Like so, that's probably part of my little trauma. Like Pop's always gone. I got to be there for my kids because I don't want to be raised like I'm gonna undo what you did to me. I'm not passing.
That was little T, because that was our own monument, right?
I'm not passing this down to my kids.
But baby, somebody had to put the bread on the table, okay?
Right. But when you get older,
that goes back to some of the things, right?
But the way that I kind of, I get around that is like, if I preached on a Friday night. I left that Friday. I took my girls to school, hopped in a plane, preached. I got on a 4:00 flight. So when I got home, they saw me. That's it.
Yeah.
So was I tired the whole weekend?
Of course.
Yeah. But did my kids see me? Yes. Did they know I was gone? No.
Wow. That's big. But that's important to you. And that's your standard.
That's my standard.
That's your standard.
But that's something that we've talked about.
That is something that we talked about.
Right.
Oh my God. I feel like we got to totally wrap this up. But I think that I hope that you guys enjoy it. I know I enjoyed this. And I feel like I definitely need to have a part 2. So, I mean,
part 2.
If y'all love this, number 1, drop the comments. Okay. Let us know how y'all enjoy it. My brother and I. Because we going to call this PIC. Okay. Because this is my partner in crime right here.
Right. PIC.
No, seriously.
PIC.
I mean, it's so funny though, because the most unsuspecting people have become such sounding boards and accountability partners in my life, and you are definitely one of those people, and I value that. And I just knew that there was some conversation that you and I have, one to another, like trying to keep each other encouraged spiritually, that I felt like we could bring to other people. And so this is segment 1, but we are definitely going to pick this up with a part 2. You got a closing thought for the people? Because I think the people need to hear you drop something. Baby, he been dropping knowledge the whole podcast.
Yeah, when it comes to, again, to like kind of reiterate what we were talking about, like when it comes to purpose, it's not a destination. Purpose is a position, but you can't get to purpose if you don't get in God's presence. Is it? Like get in His presence, and you'll get in alignment.
Get in his presence, you'll get alignment. I'm going to reiterate that. Can I pray really quickly for somebody who's watching this? God, I thank you for the time that you've given us to just sit together and just converse in you, to be sounding boards one to another. And prayerfully, these conversations will be a blessing to somebody else, wherever they are. I pray that you would find them in that moment and that you would encourage them, inspire them, enlighten them, and cause them to be challenged and changed by the thought-provoking power of your word, your revelation that has flowed through this conversation. And I pray that they will make a decision today that would change them for the better because of who you are in their life. So we thank you now for their peace, for their protection, for their transformation that I believe is happening right now. In Jesus' name, amen. Y'all, I'm excited. I cannot wait to sit back down with Josh. I hope that Josh wants to sit back down with me. But if y'all love it, we're going to bring this to y'all.
I've been trying to get her to do this for weeks.
Yeah, it's been like 3 weeks, but guess what? We going to find our day. We going to get in a rhythm. And telling y'all, Heal Her times the Josh Bair Chronicles, because baby, he always got what's the rubber band? I'm going to tag that video. I just want y'all to just see that video because, it's just fire. I'm going to tag it. But I love talking to Josh because really having somebody who you can just really be blunt with about where you are in life, in ministry, in your thought process. Yeah. So the coaching that he does for other people, listen, it helps me. It applies to my life. So if you're looking for something that you need to contact him today. All right, I'm going to make sure that he has and post all of his information available to y'all. But I hope y'all love this conversation.
This was amazing.
Hey, man.
Part 2 coming.
Part 2 is coming like next Tuesday.
I'm
Part
good.
2.
I can do it.
Tuesday's a day.
Tuesday's my day. Yeah.
This is my brother, y'all.
This is my sister.
We out of here.
Love y'all.
Peace out.